Guys, welcome back. Lori Lamont here, and this is part 2 of the Introduction to Metaconsciousness and German New Medicine or Germanic Healing Knowledge, however you want to look at it, doesn't really matter. The point is we can have freedom from fear and we can enter this new paradigm and we can understand our bodies. So what I want to talk about right now is the different brain layers and how they impact our body in different natures. So if you remember in the first video, we talked about how Dr. Hammer was able to locate by doing brain scans and find these little rings on different parts of the brain. And he was able to then correlate that part of the brain to different organs in the body. So I just want to kind of show you another image where we will be talking about just the different conflicts that you might be experiencing and what they're related to. So one of his biological laws, the third biological law, was how the conflicts are in relation to our germ layers. And so millions and millions of years ago, as we were sort of evolving as a species, we started off with just this, the brainstem, the inner germ layer, that endoderm, which was essentially, it's really just survival, digestion, and reproduction. So if you're dealing with so let's talk about survival first. So survival would be would be your lungs, your ability to take in air. So, so you're breathing. If you have any type of a death conflict, like where you thought you were going to die, or you thought someone else was going to die, or someone did die, that could impact the lungs. If we're looking at digestion, that's all the way from esophagus out to the rectum. So anything digestion would be a morsel conflict, meaning something that you just can't digest, a morsel that you can't, something you can't swallow, like I used in the last example, or maybe there's something that isn't flowing. There is something you just can't digest. It's moving through. So anytime you're having any type of digestion issues, you're going to look at, is there a morsel that I'm not digesting? Is there something here that I couldn't quite process? And then reproduction, which would, I feel like, so that could be, sexual conflicts, anything in that realm. Like, for example, Dr. Hammer, what was the biological solution to him losing his child, growing another child, which of course, I understand that the tumor wasn't actually growing another child, but growth in that testicular area. That was the biological solution. That was where those cells were being grown. So anytime we have, oh, and actually, I do want to say on the topic of the phase 1 and phase 2, the majority of the time, it is when we're having the cell loss is in the beginning, and then the cell plus is in the second half, like when we're healing. But when we're dealing with cancers, not all cancers, but most cancers, it's swapped. So we're growing like a tumor, and then our body is healing and removing the tumor. So it's not necessarily a one size fits all. There are a lot of nuances to this, but I mean, we are humans and we're pretty complex. So it would be weird if it was too simple, right? So then we have the cerebellum, bring us to the middle germ layer and the mesoderm. And so this is all about protection. So the cerebellum is if you're having, so if you, let's say you felt attacked, that's going to impact. So this is going to be impacting your corneum, which is not the epidermis, but the part of your skin that's underneath. And so that's if you're dealing with like pimples, like I had mentioned, any type of an attack conflict is going to fall under this germ layer. And then we get to the medulla, that middle germ layer, the mesoderm. So this is stability and performance, and this is actually the most common issue that I see with people, anyways. Which is so this is going to impact your bones, your muscles, your joints, your connective tissue. Basically, it's all of the parts of you that gives you structure and how it makes you strong and ability to move. And so For this, for this brain layer, I actually want to take you over to the other image. So for this brain layer, if we were to look at, again, at the two phases, let's say that you're a soccer player and you're on a soccer team and I don't know, you didn't do a good job, or maybe you missed the goal or something, and somebody said, "Oh, you're such a bad soccer player. You're the worst on our team." Okay. So what's going to happen? That will send you up into the stress phase. And during this stress phase, you're going to have your muscles are actually going to get weaker because, oh, I'm not strong enough. I'm not fast enough. I'm not a member. I'm not good enough for the team, blah, blah, blah. Right. And then let's say somebody's like, "What are you talking about? You're a great player. You're a great person on the team." That's going to send you down into this restoration phase. And what will happen is now your muscles build themselves back up. Anyone who's been to the gym, anyone who's exercised and worked hard understands it doesn't hurt the day, the day that you're doing the work, right? It hurts actually usually 2 days later because your cells take a couple days to. So what happens when you're building up your muscles, you're tearing the muscles and then they're rebuilding. So it's essentially the same thing here. You're tearing up, you're reducing cells, you're getting weaker, and then here it's so that you can then get stronger. Because here's the thing, guys, but your body doesn't make any mistakes. There are no mistakes here in this biology, and your body is constantly trying to repair itself, make yourself stronger, more capable, more able to survive. So when you're dealing with arthritis or something that's like chronic joint issue, that's where we get into what we would call a hanging healing. So a hanging healing is when we are, just bring us to that. A hanging healing is when we're in this phase, right? Of like we have the conflict, our body starts to repair itself. That's when it hurts. The joints are sore, the muscles hurt, whatever it is, you're having all this pain. And before you complete this cycle, you have another situation where you don't feel like you're strong enough, or you're something that's in that same thread that had put you here in the first place. So oftentimes when we're dealing with all of this pain, when we're dealing with all of the joint pain, the muscle pain, whatever the problem is we're having, we don't feel very strong, right? And we feel like, "Oh, I still can't do the things." Maybe it's you're feeling like you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not powerful enough, whatever. And so what happens is we end up putting ourselves, like keeping ourselves in a loop. We end up like sort of in this loop of chronic illness, chronic health issues. And as many of you know, when we learn about law of attraction, when we learn about the power of our thoughts, the power of our focus, our attention, our perception, if you're seeing yourself as weak, if you're seeing yourself as incapable, if you're seeing yourself in that way, and that's the way that you're seeing yourself in the world, then your body never is allowed to complete the cycle. So, and then the other thing is, oftentimes, especially in our modern day society, it's kind of looked down upon to rest. And so oftentimes we don't let our bodies rest. We don't let our bodies complete the cycle of rest. And if we don't allow that to happen, we go back into the stress phase. And so we're back in this cycle. And I think that's where most people are today, which makes me feel sad, that one, we don't have permission to just rest, and two, that we don't have the wherewithal to shift our perception of ourselves and maybe not beat ourselves up a little bit, right? And so that's what we're dealing with there. And then the final brain layer is the cortex. And so just to kind of go back to that little image, so here we have the outer germ layer, the ectoderm. And so this is where a lot of our conflicts come from as well. So this is our connection. This is our communication, our community, our hierarchy, where we fit in with our tribe. So really, so anytime you have separation conflict, if you're having any problems with your skin, whether it's a rash, any type of an outer rash, that's because either you wanted to be touched and you weren't touched, or you didn't want to be touched and you were touched. So this part of the brain is all about where we fit in with our people, where we are with our community, our tribe. And so this is where things like skin cancers will come in. Have you ever wondered why skin cancers tend to happen on parts of the body that didn't see the sun? I've now worked with a few people with skin cancer, and that part of the body, I've yet to see one where the part of the body actually saw the sun. And if it did, it was rare. And yet there's skin cancer there. And yet we're telling people that it's because of the sun. It's actually because that part of the body is where a conflict had happened. And that part of the body is getting stronger to protect you from it ever happening again. Okay. And so when we have community conflicts, when we have conflicts that make us feel, this is also where many, not all, but many of our mental health conflicts will come in. And so it's really, really fascinating as you start to understand the evolution of the human species and how biologically we have adapted and how we are currently adapting right now. So I think that's all I want to say for this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And remember, there's nothing wrong. Your body is adapting. Your body is healing. Your body is maybe in stress phase, but your body is adapting, and it's solving whatever the problem is. And nature doesn't make any mistakes. Thanks for being with me.